Of Ukraine has served like a geopolitical litmus test. In fact, in a way, it has helped us to better understand the state of play. Contrary to many skeptics' expectations, the United States and its NATO allies were able to mobilize one of the most powerful sanctions regimes in human history. As a result, Russia, a global power, has been reduced to a pariah state, at least as far as its relations with the West is concerned. Russia's economy contracted last year, and Russia's trade and investment relations with Europe, its top trading and investment partner for decades, virtually collapsed. But the war in Ukraine has also exposed the unwillingness of many countries in the so-called Global South to align with the West against Russia. Most prominently, countries like India, and to a certain degree also Vietnam, have refused to side against Russia or to impose sanctions on Russia, given their strong reliance on Russian weaponries and energy imports. As a result, many are talking about the so-called multi-alignment, whereby countries in the Global South try to maintain good relationship not only with the West, but also with Russia even after its invasion of Ukraine. But the war in Europe is also showing that Asia has arrived. Despite the heavy sanctions imposed by Europe, the United States, and its Western allies, Russia's economy has not been collapsing as many expected. If anything, Russia has been able to mitigate the economic damage of Western sanctions by stepping up its energy and trade and investment relations with the East. In particular, India and China have emerged as top trading partners for the country. Trade with countries like the United Arab Emirates and Turkey have also exploded, almost doubled over the past year, while relations with China and India is on a very positive investment, trade, and strategic trajectory as far as Russia is concerned. While the West has been able to demonstrate unity in face of Russia's aggression, not to mention its ability to reduce Vladimir Putin of Russia into a pariah status, the fact of the matter is that Asia has also been very effective in helping Russia to withstand the barrage of Western sanctions. If anything, the Asian century may have begun. To better help us understand the future of the global international order, especially the influence of China, India, and Asia in general, we're going to talk to someone who has covered the economies and geopolitics of the region for decades. That way, we can better figure out whether we're really entering a post-American era, or instead, we're really entering a much more anarchic, multipolar, and unpredictable era where Asia is just one of the major poles in the international system. Here with us tonight is Asia Times publisher and editor-in-chief, Uwe von Parpart. Uwe, thank you very much for joining us. Did I get it right?
You got it right. Yep.
Thank you so much, Uwe, for joining us. Of course, for the purpose of being honest about it, I and Uwe have been working together for quite some time through the Asia Times family, among others, and I felt he's really the perfect person to talk to today. There are a lot that we want to talk about. He has a military affairs background. He's an economics affairs, finance affairs background. He has so much to share with us today. But before that, Uwe, for the purpose of our audience, especially our younger audience, who may not be familiar with some of your works back in the day, can you just give us an idea about your work? How did you get into the world of journalism, especially of Asian journalism, Asia affairs journalism?
Well, my background is not in journalism at all. I was educated in mathematics at the University of Berlin and in the United States, the University of Pennsylvania. And got involved in finance mathematics, and from there actually became a banker. So, initially in Japan with doing some work with the Mitsubishi Research Institute, which belongs to Mitsubishi Bank, and then with Bank of America, and I became the chief Asia strategist of Bank of America. When you're doing that kind of work, the strategy analyst work, that gives you the I think the ability and the necessity to write about it. So the opportunity arose at some point. I had participated initially in the founding of Asia Times briefly in 1995. And then in 2015, I myself and a few of my colleagues in the banking business decided to buy Asia Times and to actually develop it on a larger scale. So that's what's been going on, and that's how I got into journalism. In 2015, we sold an investment bank in Hong Kong that I had been a partner in to Jack Ma, and that was the end of my banking career. And I'm still involved in some analytics on the banking side. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Uwe, for providing us that background. So I think our audience now are pretty sure that when you're going to talk about a number of things we're going to discuss in the coming minutes, you know what you're talking about in short. Thank you for that, Uwe. Now, obviously, the conflict in Ukraine has somehow served like a geopolitical X-ray, right? It has shown fault lines within the West, or some would say solidarity among Western countries. It has also exposed the geopolitical leaning of many rising emerging powers, where we're talking about India, for instance, or countries like Vietnam in this part of the world. But it also, of course, showed also the power of Asia, and that may explain a lot about why Russia's economy has not crumbled as some of the Western analysts were expecting. But before going there, Uwe, can you explain to us what is your analysis of the trajectory of the war itself? I mean, this is where I want you to wear your military affairs experts hat. Later on, we can go to your kind of more Wall Street finance expert guy. What is your understanding of the conflict? Because some would say it has exposed the weaknesses of Russia, but also we see a lot of strategic learning by Russia. Some say that it also showed how resilient Ukraine is, but critics would say that maybe Ukraine is also overstretching itself. What's going on here from a military affairs? What are the trend lines and patterns we have seen over the past year since the conflict started?
Well, I think initially the Russians expected to do a quick decapitation move, just moving down the highway from the border in Belarus and Ukraine into Kiev, and that didn't work. They made many mistakes, and they also probably underestimated the capabilities of the Ukrainian side. After all, the Ukrainians had since 2014 been trained by NATO forces and had been not fully equipped, but at least equipped to some significant extent. So that was a bloody nose, and they quickly readjusted, however, and withdrew from areas in which it was difficult to hold territory, and adopted essentially a defensive position. And that was phase one. Phase two, some of the areas that had been occupied in the south in Kherson and in the north in Kharkov, those areas were not well protected by the Russian troops. They were protected by territorial troops. And with the, especially with NATO's satellite intelligence and real-time view of the battlefield, they were able to, the Ukrainians were able to identify various weak spots and moved in and essentially took over those areas in the what is called Oblast, right? The Kharkov Oblast and the Kherson Oblast last September to November, and that's since then it's been a World War I type of
it's kind of attrition warfare. Yep, a kind of attrition warfare. But while we see a lot of attrition warfare, kind of a deadlock there, there's a lot of writings and discussion about, including on Asia Times, about the role of modern warfare, particularly the role of drones. I mean, we saw that in the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict just the other year, how important drones could be, or at least that's the mainstream analysis of the issue. What is your take on this, Ove, when it comes to the role of drones and more advanced 21st century technology? Are we seeing some clear lessons here, or the jury's still out?
I don't think these drones are going to be a significant offensive or defensive weapon. They're good for reconnaissance. The way the
Right.
Russians are using drones right now, primarily, I mean, they're sending some drones with some payloads into Kiev or something like that, and that's. But if you compare that to bombardments, say in World War II or whatever, it's just minor nuisance. The actual main use is what the Russians are doing right now. They're using drones for close-up reconnaissance, and then they use it for targeting of military vehicles, whether it's tanks or APCs or concentrations of troops and so on and so forth. And that's been very successful. Actually, in the case of both sides, they've been using
Right.
drones effectively.
Ove, just another question. One of the issues that was also raised by a lot of military analysts is this kind of multi-domain coordination. And there was a feeling that Russia was not very effective in making sure that it can get its air force, its land force, and to some degree even its naval forces, all of them coordinating properly together. And many would say that that is going to be the key to winning the wars of the 21st century. What is your analysis in terms of the structural, perhaps, weaknesses that we notice on the part of Russia? And do you think that there's strategic learning on their part or tactical learning even? Are they trying to fix some of these problems that were exposed after the first phase really failed spectacularly?
Well, look, nobody has fought a war of this kind, a conventional military engagement, in 50 years. Okay, the Americans have been going around the world fighting colonial type of wars, right? Expeditionary wars. For that sort of thing, you don't need coordination of significant sized forces, coordinations of different. If you want to fight in Afghanistan, you're not going to have anybody there who's going to shoot down your airplanes. You can do pretty much what you want, and you don't need much coordination. And that was true for the Russians in Afghanistan, and was true for the Americans in Afghanistan. So this is a first in many ways since World War II, or since the Korean War at least. Right? And that is, an experience that both sides do not have. And the Russians learned, I think, very, very quickly. And they were able to make the most of the capabilities that they have, primarily artillery.
Right,
And
right.
combination of artillery and now the Air Force, right? Because the Ukrainian air defenses have largely been depleted. And so there's very little at the moment that the Ukrainians can put up to defend against even helicopters and so on that are shooting down the most advanced tanks. Right? My good German contacts tell me that out of the 14 Leopards that Germany had, A6s that Germany has delivered, 4 have been destroyed and 3 have been disabled. So it's down to half.
Yeah, that's quite a fast. I mean, let's see about the Abrams tanks also from the U.S. and how they're gonna perform. But moving forward, I mean, in terms of scenarios, right? I mean, I think prediction of what's gonna happen might be not very feasible. But what are the scenarios you're looking at? What are the clinchers? What are going to be the decisive, moves that could really change the trajectory of what seems to be more like a deadlock attrition warfare kind of situation on the ground? Do you think, for instance, weapon systems like F-16 fighters coming from the U.S. or Abrams tanks, etc., could they be decisive? Or there are also indications that maybe China might want to consider, or at least reports that suggest that China might want to consider also providing some military support to Russia, if not already. So what could be the, let's say, clinchers here? Things that could change the trajectory of this so far deadlock situation?
Well, at the moment, when the Ukrainians have been talking about, everybody has been talking about a Ukrainian offensive. I don't know when that's supposed to have happened or started. If it started about 2 weeks ago when they made the moves in the south, in the Zaporozhye and the Kherson Oblast, then they've been at it now for 2 weeks and have essentially made no progress. offensive, military offensives, there are only two types. Okay, one that succeeds in a matter of days, cutting through the opposing forces,
Blitzkrieg style, yeah.
and then going through it. I mean, like what happened in World War II and in 1940, when Germany attacked France. At that point, the whole offensive was over in basically 5 days. And excuse me. And then when you're looking at this right now, this is not what's happening. The only other offense is one that stalls because of lack of forces, and then it really just reverts to a positional warfare. And I think it's quite possible that that's one of the outcomes now, that we will see continuing attempts by the Ukrainians, but it might just go back to where it's been for 6 months.